Levinson, and welcome to Light On, Light Through, episode 404, my review of A Complete Unknown, the new Bob Dylan biopic. My wife and I saw it on opening day, that was Christmas Day, just a couple of days ago. We both loved the movie, and the following is my take on the movie. Dylan recently and now famously tweeted on X that Timothy Chalamet is, quote, a brilliant actor, so I'm sure he's going to be completely believable as me, or a younger me, or some other me, unquote. Unsurprisingly, Dylan got that entirely right. Because every biopic ever made is about someone inevitably a little or a lot different from the subject of the movie. Not only can the actor not possibly look 100% like the subject, unless they are the subject's identical twin, and the producer somehow managed to go back in time and talk the twin into playing the subject's part in the biopic. But there's inevitably dialogue left out or changed, streets and buildings that don't look the same as the originals in the biopic, etc., etc. Frankly, even a documentary is never entirely truthful. It may be more truthful than the biopic, but the director inevitably has to make easy and sometimes painful decisions to leave certain things out. In a phrase, all biopics and docudramas are alternate histories, and documentaries are too, just a little less so. And as some of you know, I have even written an alternate history novel about the Beatles. I read and enjoyed immensely Jack Dan's book about how to write alternate histories, what alternate histories are all about. But let's get back to A Complete Unknown. I thought it was so good because it managed to get so many things right. Chalamet as Dylan and Edward Norton as Pete Seeger were letter and note perfect in the words they spoke, the songs they sang, and even what they looked like and how they moved. Monica Barbaro was not quite there singing as Joan Baez, who, after all is said and done, Baez's rich, mellifluous voice back then is unmatchable. But Barbaro hit all the notes well and certainly captured Joan Baez's attitude, energy, and intelligence with style. Now, I don't know what Susie Rutolo at that age was like, even in video. She was inspiration for the part of Sylvie Russo in the movie because Dylan, to his credit, in our current time, didn't feel quite right about having her character by name in the movie because sadly she left the world in 2011 and couldn't give her consent to be portrayed in the movie. But nonetheless, Elle Fanning did a fine job in the part. I'd say the obvious explanation for the name change is Dylan wanted that to happen, the name change, because some of the interactions with Dylan and Russo in the movie are at sharp variance in some significant way with what really happened between Dylan and Rutolo back then. Now, in addition to Dylan's songs, which were immensely enjoyable to see written and see and hear performed, there was a symmetry, a kind of rhyme in the movie, which I expect will stay with me for a long time. One of my favorite examples is Woody Guthrie's So Long, It's Been Good to Know Ya. It starts off the movie, which begins in 1961, as Dylan comes to New York and goes to see Woody Guthrie, who is already seriously ill. In reality, Guthrie will live until 1967. But in the movie, Guthrie's in pretty bad shape, and he meets Pete Seeger, who had a wonderful cover of that song, So Long It's Been Good to Know Ya, both solo and earlier with the Weavers. Now, at that point in the movie, it seems like the song is about Dylan and Seeger saying goodbye to Guthrie. But when the movie ends with Dylan going the apostate electric way, the song is played again, and the goodbye is to Dylan, who has forsaken acoustic folk for an electric band with Al Cooper al. And the title itself of this cinematic triumph underwent that kind of transformative rhyme. Dylan is, quote, a complete unknown, unquote, when he first crosses the Hudson and arrives in New York City and the movie begins. And of course, the song that plays out the movie as Dylan commits to high voltage is Like a Rolling Stone, in which a complete unknown, of course, is one of the many signature phrases. The implication in the movie, actually a little more than an implication, is that Dylan did this because he wanted to be as famous as the Beatles. Now, I don't know Dylan personally, and I have no idea if that's true, but I do know that both kinds of Dylan, the Dylan that did Blowing in the Wind, The Times They Are Changing, and Masters of War, evolving into the later Dylan, who did Like a Rolling Stone, Just Like a Woman, and Positively 4th Street. I don't think the last two recordings or songs were in the movie. But I thought both of those Dylans were equally genius in their own ways. And I also know, for whatever it's worth, that the lyrics Dylan wrote, well, they're in a class of their own, at the top of the best lyrics ever written, in my opinion, surpassing the timeless wordcraft of Cole Porter, John Lennon, and Paul McCartney. Now, there was one scene I found annoying in the movie. One of the highlights of the momentous Newport Folk Festival scene has Joan Baez singing There But for Fortune, a huge hit for her in reality, written not by Dylan but by Phil Ochs. Dylan is shown off stage, not looking very happy. Maybe he's understandably nervous, or maybe he's jealous, I don't know, but the song isn't at all identified by Joan Baez. And in fact, there's no mention of Phil Ochs anywhere in the movie. Whether that was an accidental oversight or a deliberate cut of something that was filmed, it's now resting on the proverbial cutting room floor. Who knows? It certainly doesn't make sense, given the prominence of the song in that particular scene, not to tell the movie audience who wrote it. And I also have to say, I'm sorry we didn't hear any of God on Our Side, especially relevant on the Christmas day that we saw it. I always thought and still think that song is the most irrefutable anti-war song, pinpointing the hypocrisy and insanity of war ever written. But, of course, that's just personal opinion, and I also think that, just like Bob Dylan's songs, this movie will never grow old. It will be watched long into the future, after which people might watch Peter Jackson's documentary about the Beatles and then Martin Scorsese's. But there's no need to wait for the future. My recommendation is see A Complete Unknown as soon as you can.
The Light on Light Through podcast.
And I hope you enjoyed that review of A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan biopic. There'll be lots of notes in the podcast notes with links to various additional things relevant to the movie that you might find of interest. For example, Terry Thal, Dylan's first manager, was left completely out of the movie. That happens often in biopics when there's more than one person who does the same thing or has the same role in a person's life or work. All too often in biopics, in the interest of saving time, these two people, real people, are combined into one person, fictional or real, in the movie. Anyway, my good friend Frank Labono, who often interviews me on his podcast, Being Frank, It's the Only Way to Be, he interviewed Terry Thal on May 30th, 2024, not that long ago, and you might enjoy listening to that podcast. And you'll find other links that you may be interested in investigating in the show notes. And I will be back here soon with some more episodes of Light On, Light Through. Once again, could be an interview, could be another review. Lots of great television, lots of fascinating people out there that I have been able to interview in the past, and I'm continuing to interview all kinds of interesting people, and lots of good movies as well. So, until I talk to you again, I hope you all stay safe, stay sound, enjoy, and especially enjoy the new year that's coming up in just a couple of days.
The Light on Light Through podcast.
Athens, 2042 AD. She ripped the paper in half, then ripped the halves, then ripped what was left again into bits and pieces of history that could have been. Sierra Waters had read once that, years ago, it was thought that men made love for the thrill, while women made love for the sense of connection it gave them.
Curled Up with a Good Book says, Sierra Waters is sexy as hell. You can find out more about The Plot to Save Socrates by Paul Levinson at theplottosavesocrates.com.
Your brilliant story, it's real life.
Paul Levinson's Silk Code, about an ancient biotech war raging on in secret for centuries.
Reading words from Paul Levinson's mind.